All right. Well, I have been troubleshooting an electrical problem on this 67 Mustang for about 7 hours now. And it's a very unusual problem. It When you try to start the car, the starter would kick for just a second, and then the car would lose total electrical. And so I isolated everything. I ended up using a remote start button to hit the starter and then probe the power wire to see if I could figure out where exactly the problem was coming from. And because it's intermittent, it was difficult to figure out exactly where the issue was because I'd test it, I'd have power, and then hit it and lose power, and then have to go back and test it again. So usually you'll see this on a ground wire. So I checked all the ground wires, checked all the grounding, isolated everything, and couldn't figure it out. And so then I started testing the power leads, and I actually found the problem. So I'm going to show you what I found. We'll go underneath the car here. So this is the power lead that goes to the starter. And I noticed that when I moved this, I had power on this side, but not this side. And the way this car is set up, power loops through the starter lug and then goes to the starter solenoid. So if there's a problem here, it's going to affect the entire car. So if you look, you can see that this is, it's got heat shrink on it, but this fitting was never crimped. So we've got a loose, basically power lug or ring terminal for the starter that has never been crimped. It's really only being held on by this piece of heat shrink here. So let's cut this off. And this way you guys can see what's going on inside of here. So look at that. So whoever did this tried to solder this but didn't do a good job. Never crimped the fitting because apparently they didn't have a crimper that would work for it. You can smell the electrical burning here. And so they basically just had this poorly connected jeez, look at this. This thing was getting hot back here in the back. Never crimped fitting with just a bunch of solder gooped up inside of it. And this is creating an intermittent connection for the voltage, which is acting like basically like a capacitor that is discharging and then causing the motor, the starter to just hit one time, and then the whole car loses power. So this is what we found. I'm going to strip this back, put a new fitting on it, put an actual crimp on it so that it's crimped correctly, and that should fix the problem. But these intermittent powering issues are a real pain when you're trying to troubleshoot them like this. And this is just a good example of poorly connected power lead that somebody obviously didn't know what they were doing. Causing an intermittent issue that just takes a ton of time to troubleshoot. And like I said, you typically see this in a grounding issue. But, in this case, it's this power lead that goes from the battery all the way up to the starter, and it's having a problem. So I'm actually going to just pull this right off. You can see it's already coming down here. There it goes. So it just pulled right off. It wasn't even kind of connected. Oh, and look inside there. That's just nasty. They put a whole bunch of solder. The solder didn't even get into the power lead, and it just caused all kinds of nasty corrosion. And it's actually not even the right lead for this. So there we go. There's our intermittent powering issue, and we'll get that fixed and should have power working good to the car, and it should start right up. All right, well, good luck. If you have a problem like this, definitely check your power and ground cables and see if you might possibly have some shoddy work. All right.